Pee Wee and you see what Pee Wee.
Come on!
Get out of bed. There'll be no more napping.
Wake up!
Cause we're in a place where anything can happen. Now we get that you feel warning. It's gonna be that kind of morning. We're being wacky. We're getting nutty. Now it's cuckoo at Pee Wee's Playhouse.
So I have an app that reminds me 3 times a day that I'm going to die. So
Ah.
yeah, and it pops
Okay.
up with a nice reminder of death. So it's good.
I mean, it sounds like what it is. We croak, and it's like, okay, listen. So for noon and 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m., we're just gonna say, listen, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I look for. That's
Right.
you know, you need that reminder.
Okay.
You've got to forward me that app. I want that app.
I think you could probably just find it.
All right. Fair enough.
He's so you sounded so disappointed. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's spelled exactly the way you think it does.
We croak.
Croak.
Are there spaces? Is it?
Yeah,
is
there's
it
a space.
we.
If not,
space
I would
croak?
call it we croak. And I said
We-
it, we croak.
Wet croak.
I've got to see this app. Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, we have a part two. We have a part two because one part is not grandiose enough for the likes of Pee Wee Herman. So we have a part two of the Pee Wee Herman tribute. And here to help me talk about the Pee Wee Herman tribute is Dave Aguilar. How are you, Dave?
Fantastic. How you kids doing?
Fan-fucking-tastic too. You know, I just learned about this We Croak app, and I'm gonna download it myself so that I can be constantly reminded that I'm going to die as well.
Yeah, it's always good to keep that in mind.
Yes. And we have Greg Vorob coming all the way from, I don't know, North Jersey, I guess. How are you, Greg?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on this all too important tribute show.
It is all too important. All of it is too important. And so the last one covered Pee-wee's Big Adventure as sort of like the main focus of discussion, which of course was just the catalyst to the entire Pee-wee Herman discussion. It was sort of like, okay, we'll springboard off of that and it'll happen. It'll be wonderful. This one is going to focus on Big Top Pee-wee in itself and in relation to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So I trust you have all done your homework because this particular episode was supposed to be recorded something like 3 weeks ago, and
There's been no delays.
yeah,
No delays. This
not
is
at all.
perfectly normal.
not at all. Yeah, well, it's pretty common. It's pretty common. It's like when you have two guests, in addition to yourself, it's not as easy as it sounds to get everyone. I was going to say everyone in the same room at the same time, but it's not even in the same room at the same time. It's just everyone not busy at the same time.
Nobody has free time.
Nobody
Has free time.
I
got to be honest. I couldn't make it last week, and I'm not going to lie. I am absolutely exhausted because I just spent 2 days working in Brooklyn. So I'm away from home then. I just got back from family vacation. So I was down there, and my family vacations is basically a lot of sun in the heat, and everybody starts drinking about 9:30 in the morning, and nobody even feels bad about it. There's no guilt. And my 81-year-old mother, she's only a little bit dialed down from the rest of the family. So let's just say after 7.5 days of that, I'm freaking tired.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Barely.
Because, well, I mean, you are here, and you even requested that we do this show at 8 p.m. and I gave you an extra half hour. So,
And I so appreciate that, by the way.
I don't even know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that you got an extra half hour because now you're closer to just basically passing out for the night.
Oh, it's cute that you think I sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyway, so I think this was supposed to be a Pee Wee Herman tribute.
Are we recording? Did we start recording already?
We are recording. So Dave, it was very good to see you and have lunch with you, whatever, like last week or the week before, whenever that was.
Yeah, it was good.
A lot of fun. Greg, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry you couldn't join for that.
I wasn't asked to join for that one.
Well, we were like 4 blocks apart, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you got time to meet me in 20 minutes?"
Mm-hmm.
So that's
There
how
we
that
go.
came about.
Okay. All
I
right, 'cause
happen to be
was not-
working. I happen to be working in his neighborhood. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I hit him
All
up.
right.
Right.
All right. You guys are completely forgiven now. Then. Okay.
Yay.
'Cause
We
I
will
was
totally. We will totally make sure not to invite you for anything planned, though.
Right.
okay.
Right.
Okay. All
Greg,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to be forgiven.
Greg, you can feel more special when we intentionally leave you out of things rather than it just being
All right.
impromptu. Okay.
All right.
So, all right. So, I guess now is a good time to kind of start talking about Big Top Pee Wee. Greg, I already know.
Yeah.
I already know how much you love this movie, so I'm gonna pass it over to Dave. Dave,
Oh.
it was sarcasm a little bit because Greg only loves the movie a little bit. Dave, before we get to Greg's whatever critique of the movie, was this? I mean, I'm assuming you've seen it previously before you watched it for the
Yeah.
episode, but I mean, just go ahead and tell us about whether you watched it a lot or kind of haven't seen it in a while, and was almost as if you had seen it for the first time. What was your take on it?
It's funny because when I saw this movie originally, so me being an old man, I saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure when it was brand new. Then a couple years later, they came out with the Big Top Pee-wee, but I didn't see them in close proximity. So I did my homework, like I said, for this podcast, and I rewatched it, which I was happy to do because I was always a huge Pee Wee Herman fan. But now I'm watching them in close proximity, and I realized, wow, these are very different movies.
Very
Very
yes.
different movies. The feel of them, the storyline. The only thing that didn't change was Pee Wee Herman himself, but everything else was just like a completely different experience. Or the movie, or the music.
I don't even think that I would agree that Pee Wee didn't change from one movie to the next. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was. That's true. He must have hit puberty.
Yes,
he hit puberty between the
Yes.
original and this. Well, yeah,
Yes.
you're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Greg, please,
Yeah.
please bestow upon us your wisdom and chicanery, if that's even a word, of this movie.
Well, I have to. For all I am plotting the best course of revenge I possibly can for having to watch Big Top Pee Wee, it cancels itself out because fuck you for. While I want to say fuck you for reminding me Big Top Pee Wee exists, one of the worst movies ever made. Thank you for reminding me, though, my love of Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And it's so, I literally just watched it. I was going to come on the first time we planned this episode, I was going to just come on from memory. But I did have now the time and the ability to watch it again and remember just how much I loved it and how intricate it was. Like, I forgot how up there it is. Like, I always talk about Ghostbusters, Wayne's World, and such for influencing me, movies that really had a big impact on me. But I forgot exactly how much Pee-wee's Big Adventure did. So in that sense, though, then I forgive them for Big Top Pee-wee. Because Big Top Pee-wee is a pile of dreck. Everyone who hasn't seen it or has seen it, if you don't think so, take my word, it is. I believe Big Top Pee-wee is one of the biggest messes ever made. Some of it has to do with execution, though, because I changed my rating from a 1 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10 for Big Top Pee-wee because the style is.
Hey, there you go. Twice as good now.
What he was attempting to do and what the studios were attempting to do most obviously was make this like a Laurel and Hardy, Pinky Lee, of who was a big predecessor to Pee Wee Herman. These Charlie McCarthy, these old time 1940s comedy acts, putting them to cinema. And where I give Big Top Pee-wee credit is that it was trying to do that. It with the stylized opening credits and the fact that Pee-wee is just going to be this random character, not necessarily connected to the last time you saw him, and picking up from there. I did appreciate that, but there's nothing executed in Big Top Pee-wee at all. That is, I have nothing good to say. But we are here to remember Paul Rubens fondly, and
we
do
love
remember
Paul
him
Rubens
fondly.
so very much.
We do. If you want me to compare, the two films, I mean, he made a masterpiece with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's an
I would
absolute
agree.
masterpiece.
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. It's
Big
one
Top
of the funniest
Pee-wee,
things ever.
yeah, it is one of the funniest and also one of the most brilliant. And you don't have to be a fan to, like, when you look at the Clown Dream scene and where Elfman's score was strategically placed to Burton's shots. I'm like, damn it! You just revolutionized cinema right there. You just that is the first shot of, and you see Beetlejuice in there, and you see Big Fish even in that movie, in that whole movie.
Absolutely.
What Pee-wee's Big Adventure did, it was so ahead of its time that it's hard to follow something like that up. And sometimes you get a follow up that's just it's not as good of a movie. But Big Top Pee-wee was swill, but there's a lot of reasons. I mean, it had a lot of I don't want to say it had studio interference. That would be speculating. But they really,
Lord knows we don't want speculation.
No, because everything here is fact.
Right.
We're very critical, and we are very thorough in fact checking.
1988 was a year that gave us Die Hard. It had another comedy out at the time, A Fish Called Wanda, which I also don't care for. It's probably not as bad as Big Top Pee-wee. I don't care to check again. But yeah, that was never my cup of tea. Roger Rabbit, of course, was the huge movie out then that would certainly, pardon the expression, trump Big Top Pee-wee, because that had the audience of children and adults like Big Top Pee-wee was going for. But Big Top Pee-wee, for that matter, really didn't know what it was supposed to, because is it a kid's movie where he had just done, now Pee-wee's Playhouse had started. And so Big Top Pee-wee would be getting an audience from that, but he faints from looking at Valerina Galino's breasts. It's not really a scene for the preschoolers. Right. Which is not a scene for the preschoolers watching Pee-wee's Playhouse. So it's a very confusing, who the fuck is this for? Why is this movie here type movie? But, that aside, I think the body of work and the influence and everything that Paul Rubens did as a comedian and actor and he was so enormously humble about the whole thing too, of things that he got into the spotlight and just the fact that he made Tim Burton the mainstream film director. And I look at him now. I mean, Johnny Depp has his partial millions to thank Paul Rubens for that.
Yeah, that movie definitely launched several careers.
So many things.
Danny Elfman with the music, who we've all come to love over the decades. Tim Burton. I mean, the filmography that came out because of this.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was actually gonna talk about my take on Big Top Pee-wee, because Dave, it seems that you were just sort of like, yeah, well, whatever. It was a movie, I suppose, and Big Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a masterpiece. Greg is saying that Big Top Pee-wee was absolute garbage, tripe, should not have existed ever.
Yes, I am.
Greg, I wish you would be more specific about the way you feel, because you're so like, do you like it? Don't you like it? I don't know.
Very vague.
I can't
Very
tell.
vague.
I can't tell. So as for me, something that I kind of found interesting is that in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Pee-wee was obviously the main character. It was his big adventure. And, he was going across the country to find his bike and all that stuff. And it was great. It was cool. It was fun. He met all these people along the way. In Big Top Pee-wee, even though he had the most screen time, it didn't seem to me like he was really the main character. He was the catalyst for the story. And of course, he had his own thing where he was like oh, he wanted to get a spot in the circus and he was in love with the Italian woman and he was supposed to be, married to the lady from Adventures in Babysitting. Fine, whatever. I want to compare Pee-wee from the first movie to the second movie. Our friend Kyle Bain thought that Pee-wee Herman was super creepy in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He said he didn't like the movie. Okay, cool, fine. I get it. I understand why you would think he's creepy. I don't agree at all. I think Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a masterpiece. You fast forward now to Big Top Pee-wee. I think Pee-wee is so much creepier in this movie, in Big Top Pee-wee, than he was
correct.
in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because whereas in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it seemed that the idea of being romantically involved with anyone just did not appeal to him at all.
Right.
Like Dottie was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the drive-in or whatever," and Pee-wee was like, "What? The connection just got really bad." All that, and then all of a sudden, we go to Big Top Pee-wee, and he's like, "Oh, lunch with Winnie. Let me try to fuck her in the middle of this field until she like literally shoves me off of her." I guess because he didn't actually force himself on her. He jumped on her. She pushed him off, and he was like, "Okay, fine. I guess we're not doing this." And then I don't know, was it like the same day, the next day, he meets, what's her name? The Italian woman?
I don't even remember. I just know
I don't know her.
Galina.
Valerina Galina? Or yeah, sure. Okay, so he meets her and, gets it on with her. And it's just like, damn, dude, anything with a vagina for you, huh? So it's like, yeah, you're kind of not even really the same character. You're a horn dog now.
I have to agree with you, because there was something, and I didn't think. I think the movie itself, and I think that's a hand of Tim Burton in it. The movie has a dark flavor to it.
You're talking about Big Top?
You're talking about
No. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But Pee-wee, I didn't think he was creepy. He's a kid. And that's what like a lot of little boys are like, "I love my bike. La, la, la. I don't want a girl icky poo." I never went through the girls are icky phase. I always was trying to hump a girl's leg like a puppy. But a lot of boys do, right? He wasn't interested in that. He wanted his toy and to have fun with his toy, right? In Big Top Pee-wee, he didn't just become like a man. He was a creepy man.
He's creepy.
Yeah, and you, John, seem to be confused of why I hate the movie so much. You just
I'm not at all
a big part of why. Yeah,
I'm not confused as to why you hate the movie. Like the movie, like you don't respect Pee-wee in the second movie.
No, not at all. You don't respect.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're sort of like, okay, he's cheating on he's not just cheating on his girlfriend or someone that he's been dating. He's cheating on his fiance,
Right.
And then she comes along, finds that he is making out with this other woman, throws the egg salad sandwich in the waterfall, and she goes, "Who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's my fiance." Like, so matter of fact, that's my fiance. Like, what? Like, really? You're not even gonna like act embarrassed. You're just like, yeah, she's my fiance. So yeah. Greg, though, can I ask you, if not for that aspect of it, where he's just sort of like a skirt chaser and he doesn't really care about much else except the circus, do you still think that the movie is tripe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The whole thing just. So I could do a breakdown commentary as to why.
That's we don't really have that long of an episode, but it's
I'm not interested.
Right. So yeah, I mean,
it just didn't have the magic.
Yeah,
it didn't have the magic.
No.
And they were trying to, make it a series of films. Paramount went in there. Warner Brothers never made a deal with him after Big Adventure. He got the deal he got all these other deals. You weren't contracted to a specific studio at the time. Big Top Pee-wee was a make or break. Is this now going to become a series of frickin' like Laurel and Hardy, you know, and Abbott
Uh-huh.
and Costello, Pee Wee meets Frankenstein, that kind of thing would have happened if Big Top Pee Wee was his love guru. But luckily, he had the TV show. He had the TV show, which was so great and innovative
Right.
and wonderful for kids, you know, at the time. And then, of course, you know, a few years later, he made a little mistake. But in reality, you know, we didn't get a movie until, you know, Pee Wee's Big Holiday. And by then, you know, by Big Holiday, it's not a horrible film at all. It kind of falls in the middle of those two. It's like if you like Big Adventure, it's sort of like I can do a better movie than Big Top Pee Wee, you know, nod to the fans, you know,
Yeah.
and that's
I-
what it is, you know.
I wanna talk about Pee Wee's Big Holiday for a minute. Now, one thing that I absolutely did respect in Big Top Pee Wee, yeah, it was not nearly as good of a movie. It wasn't a great movie at all. I thought it was okay. Greg thinks it's awful. Fine. But I think at least he wrote a different movie, right? It was not just like trying to redo Pee-wee's Big Adventure as like, oh, here's Pee-wee's Big Adventure Part 2. Now he's trying to find his, I don't know, motorcycle, and he's going to go across the country and find more weird people. Like, at least they didn't do it that way. Then they got to Pee-wee's Big Holiday, and they tried to remake Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'm like, dude, why? Why did you do that? Dave, you were going to say something?
Well, what brings me to mind is the scene where in Spaceballs, right, where the crew meets yogurt, and they're talking about the movie. What was it? Spaceballs 2, the search for more money.
Yeah.
Right. That's what that kind of sounds like. I didn't see
Right.
Pee-wee's Big Holiday, but I've definitely got to check it out. But from the
Check
way
it
you're
out,
describing it, that's kind of what it sounds like.
It's basically like, and I think even a couple of the people from Pee-wee's Big Adventure were in Pee-wee's Big Holiday. It was just sort of like, all right, you know, when he made excuse me, the new HBO special, you know, the Pee-wee's Playhouse thing, that was good. You know why? Because he took Pee-wee's Playhouse and he made it very obviously adult.
Right.
Now,
right.
Now, in the original HBO special from 1981, the quote unquote Playhouse was a completely different thing. It was, you know, it had a couple of the same characters from Pee-wee's Playhouse later, but when he did Pee-wee's Playhouse later on, it was literally Pee-wee's Playhouse, but for adults.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I'm kind of with you on this, John. I don't hate the movie. It was, you know, it was something to put on the screen. The only reason I was at all engaged, and I'm not even shy about it, Valeria Golina is an incredibly sexy woman.
Then you know what? Turn on Hot Shots.
Oh,
what do I care?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She was in she did one of the Dana Carvey movies, I think Clean Slate.
Was it Clean Slate? Yeah, I think it was.
I think so. Well, it definitely was an Opportunity Knocks. So it was Clean Slate. Yeah.
But even that whole romantic relationship with her, it was not what we would. It's not what we look for from Pee Wee Herman.
Right.
It was very
forced. At all.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy looking and looking at Valeria Golina, the movie didn't. The character doesn't need that. It detracts from the character.
All right. Let's get on to the actual plot, and I'm going to call this the main plot. Pee-wee's love interest is a subplot. The main plot is that there was a hurricane, like a really bad hurricane, and no one wanted to give Pee-wee and his pig a ride back to the farm, which I thought was super fucked up. Like, okay, you don't like the guy, fine. By the way, that's another thing that was different. In Pee-wee's Big Adventure, everyone loved Pee-wee.
Yeah.
He was so lovable. In Big Top Pee-wee, everyone hated Pee-wee. It was such a different feel, such a different vibe. So he gets back to his farm, I guess by walking, and comes downstairs, does really weird things with these animals, puts like party hats on them, and he comes back and the circus is literally in town. It's like the circus landed on my front door. And so, like the whole thing is like, okay, now he wants to help them put the show on, and he wants to like circumvent the old grumpy people's hatred of the circus. It's like, okay, well, here's an idea. You guys blew in via a hurricane. Where were you going to do your circus in the first place? Clearly, it wasn't on my farm. So, what's the deal here? What gives?
Right.
You know? So I don't know.
I think it was interesting. I'm watching the and of course I'm watching the opening scene where he's waking up, and the first thing I noticed is like, well, this house looks much more boring than the last house he lived in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Immediately caught that, but then he goes into the town. I'm like, why are these people so fucking miserable? So fucking miserable. And then you know what? It came to mind. You know that song that's causing all the controversy, that try that in a small town.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
Right. Yeah. My daughter lives in small towns. Like I know it's small. They suck.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, small towns suck. Like my daughter's town, she lives there with my son-in-law. It's mostly old people. She'll tell you it's mostly there's nothing there for young people. What do you got? Meth? There's nothing going on. It's a depressing place.
You know what you got? You got a delicious cheese sandwich at the same store that sells quilts. That's
right.
What you got.
Right, exactly. And twine.
and twine.
It's
like,
well,
but
they're out of stock.
I suppose it is the only store in town. This like grumpy guy with like one constantly raised eyebrow is the proprietor, and he's nice to everyone else. But once Pee Wee Herman gets in, everyone just like, oh, well, I never.
Yeah. And the old man, by the way, I kept looking at him and I'm like, he so reminded me, the facial expression, Phantasm, the tall man.
Oh, I thought
that's who he reminded me of.
I thought you were going to say Fletcher from UHF.
If you did not see it.
No?
Did not see it.
Oh, I didn't see it. I said, oh, well, if you watch that, I think the guy's name is RJ Fletcher. I thought it was the same guy. And I was actually surprised to find out that it was actually a different actor, because it was like an old grumpy looking guy who looked like that in the late 80s. Okay, I guess there were two of them. Yeah.
But what a horrible town of people. But you know what I'm thinking? From the small towns that I've known, it's hey, Pee-wee, you're an outsider. We hate you. You know what I mean?
Because everyone in the town is at least 80 years old, except Pee-wee.
Right.
Somehow. I don't know how that happens. But
all the young people moved out of town, which is what often happens in small towns.
The other thing is, what exactly does Pee-wee do? What did he do? There's no explanation of why they hate him. It's just, it's that young whippersnapper, Pee-wee Herman. There's just no explanation. It's not like he even causes any kind of mischief.
He's too upbeat. They don't like upbeatness. Please, all I want is a cheese sandwich.
Why? It's funny. You're doing the voice. I did the voice before, and because I watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I rewatched it first, and then I rewatched Big Top Pee-wee, and I remembered hearing I knew every freaking line that he uttered, and I realized how much talking when I was younger, my friends and we used to do. Talking like them, the impact of that ridiculous characterization he made.
Yeah.
But we fell in love with it.
I mean, I can't say that I didn't agree with Pee-wee in that moment when he was like, he's like, like dancing into the store, and he's like, hey, can I just have a cheese sandwich? And those two ladies who were in the back of the store, they were like, excuse me, but I was here first. And the guy was like, yeah, that's right. And so they're just like looking at this lace, trying to figure out whatever tablecloth they want to buy, whatever the fuck they were looking at. And it's like, okay, a normal proprietor of a store would say, "Oh, excuse me, ladies, let me just make this gentleman a sandwich and I'll get right back to you and help you decide which you want." But no,
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 not in that town.
no,
And by the way,
absolutely not.
that's exactly how they greeted that one black guy who came into the store the week prior to Pee Wee Herman. He got the exact same treatment.
Oh yeah.
Weird, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So there's two things that I want to say before I forget to say them, because one of them I forgot to say on the last Pee Wee tribute episode, and I'm very glad that I had the opportunity to say it now. So first off, in the movie Big Top Pee Wee, I love Miss Yvonne as the bearded lady with the accent. I'm like, that is just so brilliant to me because it's Miss Yvonne. It's fucking Miss Yvonne. And she has an accent for some reason. And she's a bearded lady. And she is like one of those people who just keeps talking through the movie, has no real character, but like, they don't serve those outsiders because, women with beards don't get service, I guess. I don't know. So that, first of all, Miss Yvonne as the bearded lady. Lynn Stewart, by the way. Two, when I first heard that Pee Wee was caught masturbating in an adult theater, I literally thought of Pee Wee Herman with his gray suit and red bow tie getting caught with his pants down in the movie theater. I did not think I did not think of just some normal guy in an adult movie theater jerking off. It's literally, that's when he's not being filmed, when he's not performing or entertaining, he still dresses that way and he goes to the adult movie theater that way.
That's a great image, by the way.
Yes.
That I will never be able to get out of my head.
Yeah.
God damn it, John Seymour. God
So
damn it.
There were recently horrible posts about by a couple of people on social media that I saw, and whether I usually respect them or not, they don't really. They were really like, how could you be remembering him fondly after that disgusting? What did he really do?
What did he do? He didn't do anything.
What did he really
wrong.
do?
He
didn't do anything that you don't do.
He was literally sitting there in a crowded adult theater jerking off with a bunch of other dudes that are doing the same fucking thing.
Right.
Nobody looked at him and went,
Rubens.
"Oh my goodness." Nobody
Right.
thought that.
Oh dear, what are those? Another set of eyes on that woman?
Right.
Like,
You
what
walk
is
in
it?
there and the other guy looks at you. He's like, "You come here to wank?" Yeah.
Yeah. Now, now, is it something I personally do myself? Not in that fashion. No. But he wasn't. If he was there dressed as Pee Wee Herman, that would be one thing. You see, what he was. He was Paul Rubens.
Yeah.
And it's what people don't actually know is that he actually was already ending Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
It just happened to come at the same time, no pun intended.
that
Happened when the show was in its final season. He was not doing another season, so it seemed like that CBS had canceled it because of that incident. But he came back from that with complete class. He addressed it MTV Movie Awards 1992 or 93, but probably 92. Do you hear any good jokes lately? That was it. So, I mean, really, get over it, people. This is a situation to get over it.
Yeah.
Because he jerked off once, which is something you do, make these same people do probably even more than once a day.
Yeah.
But I don't do it the way he does. I only masturbate in Broadway theaters.
Right. And you don't dress as Pee Wee Herman when you do it.
No, but yeah, I agree that there's a whole layer of hypocrisy there with that, because that's it's a victimless crime. That's like arresting somebody because they grow marijuana in their backyard for themselves. What?
Right.
What?
I mean, at least
Come on.
I would say this, not that I agree with the law there in that case, but at least you could say, okay, marijuana is illegal. So if we catch you with a marijuana thing in your backyard,
he had marijuana, by the way, on his person, which was
he?
one of the things at the time. Yeah,
know.
it was. Yeah, he had a little pot on him.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Yeah, right.
I mean, again, these are all things. It's a victimless
and
crime.
it was pre-internet. It was pre where you could just pull up Spank Bang. It's just a site I heard about. I didn't know that it actually exists. It's a site. I understand. If you guys want to check it out, I understand this. You can pull up a freaking YouTube and find this stuff. But yeah, he had to go. He went to a theater. And I guess there was a raid or something. I don't even know how they catch. Like, the only way for you to catch the guy was for you to be in the presence of men jerking off. So
it was the old ladies and the old guy with the raised eyebrow that reported the fucking theater. It's one of those people. That's the kind of people that report it. Because the guy that's in there wanking, next to you, he's not calling the cops.
Right, exactly.
And the owner's not calling the cops because he's like, I don't know, let me count my money that I made.
Yeah, exactly. So when the guy says Pee Wee Herman wants a pickle, he doesn't quite mean an actual pickle. So I get, like, hey, look at that, right? Okay. So
that was a lot about Pee Wee Herman masturbating.
You know what? That's okay though. That's okay.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. It's the elephant in the room.
It was defending somebody whose art we appreciated, whose work we appreciated.
Yes, very much. I appreciate him as a person. Look, he acknowledged the mistake and then had a great sense of humor about it. We've all had, being in the public eye and having an embarrassing moment like that. It's so much different. You lose your anonymity when you're such a big celebrity like he was. And so it was unfortunate. It was not his greatest moment in the sun, but people have done so much worse and he didn't hurt anybody.
It was out of the sun for sure.
Yeah. Am I saying am I advocating the evening that he had in public? No, absolutely not. But he didn't do anything that was just the way people were, demonizing him recently. I was so surprised too at who it was.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why people would demonize him, especially
Dave said. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's the picking and choosing. They want to demonize Paul Rubens. They don't want to Sean Connery. Sean Connery did something so exponentially worse.
Yeah. So I want to stay. I want to say that Dave and Greg had already mentioned this briefly at the beginning of the show, were supposed to both be on the original podcast of the Pee Wee Herman tribute. That would have been a lot of people on the same episode. That would have been
way too many.
5 people. Greg, I didn't think that you were actually going to join until you told me. I was going to join, but then it was like postponed or whatever, because these things always are. But I have to say, I'm glad that I got everyone in who wanted to be on this Pee Wee tribute thing. Because,
and in all honestly, John, I am so grateful for that, because I told you I missed that one because I had a technical issue. Yeah. I was honestly heartbroken, because if there's something I would love to have podcasted about, it was Pee Wee Herman.
Of course.
That guy was awesome.
You know what?
Rob Levine too was very disappointed to not meet Dave. He wanted to meet Dave very much.
I was kind of driving the point about this so it was my brother Dan Seymour and Rob Levine, who my brother and Dan Seymour are the same person. That's not a list of 3 people. It was Dan Seymour and Rob Levine in the first one, and then obviously Greg and Dave on this one. These 2 discussions are like, there's no similarities between them, which I find quite remarkable. There's so much to be said about Pee Wee Herman that if you listen to this one, you should also listen to the first one. And obviously, I won't be saying, didn't say it in the first one, because how could I possibly know? But this is quite something, and I'm really glad to be doing this again. And if I can find more panelists, I'll have like a 10-part Pee Wee tribute.
And I think I wouldn't call him underrated.
No, he's not at all. No, he's not.
He's not underrated, but I think if people really look up the impact he had on the entire business and the way he changed entertainment, I recommend even further reading on. Even though he was never like a Saturday Night Live cast member, he worked with all of them. Obviously, Phil Hartman, got Saturday Night Live partly through this. through Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you know,
Mhm.
the people that he worked with, the people that influenced, the people that, you know, in hiring Tim Burton and finding him through Shelley Duvall, by the way. Shelley Duvall
Oh, really?
helped find, because I think she was in Frankenweenie. She was either in Frankenweenie or she was in something else that he
The
did. It's a Tim
Shining.
Burton. Yeah, well, yes, but no, with something with Tim Burton, that just everything from comedy and improv and television and film that Paul Rubens had a hand in is pretty remarkable.
Does anyone have any closing statements about Mr. Pee Wee Herman? No.
I just appreciate the guy. I can't say it enough. Like the impact that he had, and you know, there's times I watch things and I look at myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm
Right.
kind of that. And this was one of those. Like I a year or two ago, I binge watched MASH. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's an undertaking because that was a very long running show. So I watched MASH, but one of the things that I realized is that Hawkeye Pierce explains a large part of my personality because I grew up watching MASH. I loved that show when I was a kid. And Pee Wee Herman's another one of those. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of there that I realize is part of my personality. And I could trace it back to that.
Fair.
So it was awesome getting to see it. It was just great getting the time to watch these two movies again.
Even Michelle, my sister, who are the family of this podcast, people know how close Michelle and I are. It's a part of the family. She is not a fan of the character, but could still quote parts of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like "I'm trying to use the phone,"
Right.
and she'll go
Nice, yeah.
hysterical, or when the big head is no, you know, that kind of thing. So there's you know, back in the heart of Texas, deep in the heart of Texas, all these. It's
Yeah.
still a very quotable, and it's like, wow, this film, like, was a major part of my formative years,
Mhm.
and also gave me the idea when you have something. It did ignite my love of movies and silly movies and random that type of humor very much. And if you, I don't want to speak for Dan Conrad, but like I noticed some parts of even of, you know, the Marty and Doug universe that is like, wow, you know, these cast of near duels. You know, and Paul Rubens was a major part of that. He really did change the face of comedy. He really did help shape comedy that we know today.
Yeah.
That, you know, so you went from a shaking your head that you don't have a closing statement to that. That was a good leap there, and I'm glad. You know, so I'm just realizing now that as much as we've talked about the Pee Wee Herman career, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Big Top Pee Wee, the original Pee Wee's Playhouse HBO special, everything, Pee Wee's Big Holiday, very little in both of these episodes was said about Pee Wee's Playhouse itself. So
you could do a whole other episode about
that. Perhaps there is a part 3 in the works coming up.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a sign up sheet that I'll put on the, I don't know, the adult theater bathroom, and
That's gonna get sticky.
I gotta wonder.
You won't need
I gotta
tape
wonder.
or glue.
I gotta wonder whether or not that theater is still in business today in Florida, and there was like flowers, you know, in front of that theater
It's a statue
in memory of Paul Rubens. Yeah. The big joke that I remember.
Oh, I thought you said the big jerk. I'm sorry.
You know, the big joke I remember was,
never mind.
did you
That's
hear
Pee Wee
about
Herman.
Pee Wee? The big joke at the time was, did you hear about Pee Wee Herman's new movie? It's called My Left Hand, because My Left Foot was a movie.
It's a
at the
movie.
time.
That's
So
right.
like, yeah, so it was My Left Hand. Yeah.
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis. I want to thank both of you for having this discussion with me. This was a lot of fun. We'll get into plugs now, I guess. Dave, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. I'm always up there. You can find me at basically just Dave. It's not a description. That is actually the word, basically just Dave, all one word. You can find me on Facebook, where I'm Dave Aguilar. So check me out on either one of those platforms. Just say hello. I always like making new friends. And I also do some writing. So I write some fiction, short stories, yada, yada. And you could find that. It's called Aries Desk. You could find it at Aries Desk, which is EYRIESDESK, ariesdesk.blogspot.com, and read some really depressing stuff. So that's where you can find me. I'm either rampaging of mania here, or profoundly exploring the darkness of my heart.
Wow. I thought I profoundly explored the darkness of your heart, but I guess I haven't seen nothing yet.
Oh, it gets worse.
It gets bad.
It
Anyway,
gets worse.
Greg,
Yeah.
plugs?
Please check out MSV Podcast Presents The Fake and the Whimsy. Why am I bringing that up first? Because that humor in there, I'm not going to say much about it, but was helped Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And Pee-wee Herman and Paul Rubens certainly helped inspire that side of me. Check out Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. We are on hiatus now until February of 2024. So it's a while. However, big bonus show coming up on Star Trek Day. September 8th, that is right. It's the 57th birthday of Star Trek. We're going to have an episode. Who's going to be there? John Seymour. A guy who has never watched Star Trek is now like accumulating 5 appearances on a podcast about Star Trek. So check out Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast, and I thank you all from this show who have come over there and have listened to us via this show. Thank you so much, and thank you for the wonderful compliments you'll be giving us. We'll spell my last name. V as in Victor, O-R-O-B as in boy, Greg Vorob. Find me on Facebook. Find me on X. It's no longer Twitter, but we're not going to bother changing it from the pre-recorded Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast plug. You know what Twitter is. Twitter is X, or is X Twitter? We don't know. Greg_Vorob. And please check out my YouTube page at Greg Vorob. Where the full movie version of Marty and Doug's New Religion was just posted. It had not been available in its entirety online since it was made, I think in the 2010s when it was on Amazon Prime. But now it is free to watch on my YouTube, and it's getting views. So please add to those views and check that out, and let me know what you think. Even though if you think it sucks, let me know.
I will.
Yeah.
I will let you know if I think it sucks. I won't let you know if I don't think it sucks, though.
All right.
So as for me, I'm John Seymour, Jon space SEYMOUR. That's me on Facebook. I'm sitting behind a drum set wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt, and I don't know, holding drumsticks or something, whatever it is. So that's me on Facebook, and so obviously this show, Bullshit Hour with John Seymour, has sort of not been following the bullshit flow lately. I intend to bring it back to that at some point. Right now, I'm focusing on the Pee-wee tributes and my other podcast, The Hour of Comics is Upon Us. And Greg and Dave have both guested on that show. Greg will be on future episodes, and I'm certainly sure that Dave will also appear on future episodes, because who doesn't love listening to Dave talk about the Punisher and whatnot? So that's The Hour of Comics is Upon Us.
And
Anyway.
are we literally like just Pee-wee? Like, think, like anybody here have kids? I don't. I used to, but then they grew up and moved out. And I'm a 51-year-old fucking man child. Are we man children? Is this what we are?
I suppose. But before we get into this whole man children thing, I want to expand on what Greg said about the Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. Is it okay if I say what the episode is going to be, or do you want that to be a surprise? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So this is going to be Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. It's funny because Dave was talking about Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money. Pretty sure that was a reference to that. So the Search for Spock.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
The Search for Spock, and that is the episode that I will be on with Greg and Kyle Bain and Dan Hulley.
Yes, and Rob Barnes.
And Rob Barnes, right. So, okay. So that's good. I got the panel correct. So if anyone is actually still listening at this point, they will know what to expect. And that's that's that.
Awesome. And
And
that's coming out September. What was it again?
With September 8th, that'll
September 8th, Star
be
Trek
up.
Day.
Yeah, that'll
Cool, it's
drop.
right around
yeah.
the corner. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the significance? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.